In today's video, I am going to be breaking down Shaedon Sharpe because he is one of the top prospects coming out of Canada this year. And of course, everybody knows of him. So let's get down and let's check him out. So of course, Shaedon Sharpe is actually really well known for his massive dunks, but he's a really good shooter as well. Okay, so in this first clip, what we are looking at is, of course, Shaedon Sharpe, the side view of him. As we can see, he is tilted away from the basket. Now, the reason why this is important is because, of course, you really want to get your elbow in line with your shoulder towards the rim. This is why it's not always a good idea to have players squared up totally to the rim. You want to sometimes have them actually tilted away from the rim because you really want to get that in line. That is extremely important. We also see that his knees come together. Now, some trainers will say that that is an injury risk, but I'm going to say it's not. And then we also see that his feet are slightly tilted away, but not as much as his upper body. Now, when he does receive that ball, he does do a slight dip, but he doesn't bring that dip below his waist. Usually with a dip, what that will do for the player is almost like a backswing in golf. It basically gets everything in line so that when you rise that shot up into your set point from your gather, you're going to be able to keep your right side of your body in line. Something else that we do see from this angle is that Shaedon Sharpe's hand is exactly on the side of the basketball with his hand really super wide. You really want to keep both of your hands extremely wide as you possibly can on that ball, mainly because it's going to allow you to have more control. Now his base, his feet are shoulder width apart. He is obviously looking at the rim, and his shoulders are actually slightly over top of his toes. However, on his left side, we can see that that knee is definitely not over top of the toe. It's definitely bowing in. This can sometimes tell trainers and teams that the outside of your quad is a little bit more powerful than the inside of your quad. Now, that's not going to be really affecting anything, but he could actually probably jump a bit higher if he worked out the inside of his quads. So I guess that would be a pro tip for anybody out there. From there, when he brings the ball from his gather to his set point, he doesn't necessarily bend his elbow all that much at all. He brings it up right down the middle of his body, and then he goes up into his set point and then his release. Now, when we talk about his set point, it's very close to a one motion shot. He doesn't freeze all that much at that set point, but he does freeze for about 1 to 2 frames, which isn't all that much. He doesn't have a thumb flick. We can see that by his palm facing the wall there, and he has that nice soft release with his elbow above his forehead. This is going to give him a lot of arc on his shot, which is going to be extremely hard for defenders to block, but also it's going to allow for a soft shot. With a soft release, there's going to be a little bit less backspin. That's going to be something we can definitely see that he needs to work on, because players like Steph Curry do have a soft release as well, and they've got a lot more backspin on that ball. We can see that it goes around one time at that point, 2 full rotations. So you really want to get more than 2.5 rotations on the ball. It looks, from this angle at least, that he's only gotten 2 rotations, so he really does need to work on that. And we can see from this angle here one more time, that's 1 full rotation there, and then of course going around, that's about 1 3/4 to 2 rotations. So you really want to work on, if I was Shaedon Sharpe's trainer, I would be really working on getting rotation on that ball. However, Shaedon Sharpe is able to really create a shot off of a dribble, as we can see here, and he actually gets a little bit more backspin on that ball when he is taking a step back shot. Now, of course, he's not shooting a set shot here, so that could be why he's also having a little bit of drift on his lower body, which is totally fine. Some trainers will say get rid of all drift, go straight up and straight down, but a lot of NBA players will have that drift. They will drift forward. However, look at his shoulders, and this is where you really need to look on your shot. If you do have a little bit of forward drift on your legs, if your shoulders are still going straight up and straight back down, but your legs are drifting forward, other than the potential injury risk when players undercut you with their foot, other than that, that's going to give you more power on your shot. And yes, there is a higher increased chance of injury, but just from players trying to undercut you, Maybe they didn't mean to in some cases, but there are some players who will try to do that to you. So that is something to really watch out for. He can also do a fadeaway. He can also have that leg sticking out, which is important. You really want to have that if you're doing a turnaround jumper, mainly because you really want to get your right side in line, and that's what we can see here. This is such a beautiful shot. I think Shaedon Sharpe is going to be a very good player. And we can see from this angle that when he goes into his shot, the left foot is up on its toe. There's slightly a little bit of air underneath the right heel. However, we can see that when he's pulling up for a pull-up jumper like this, we can see that he's putting a lot more calf pressure on that left leg, and this leg is using a lot less calf power. However, it's to stop him from going in this direction. So as we can see, when he starts to lift up into his shot, this is when he starts getting up onto his toes, and that's perfect. He is getting a lot more explosiveness out of the left side than the right. However, that could be why his knees come together. Maybe his right leg is actually the weak leg and his left leg is actually the strong leg. Very similar to myself. You'll actually notice that with a lot of right-handed players, their right leg is a lot weaker than their left because, of course, they're going up for right-handed layups all the time, and that's the leg that they're going off from, so that could be a very good reason why. When he does pull up for a jumper, we can see again both heels are, of course, off the ground, and then when he goes up for his set point, it seems to be right over top of his right eye. It's not touching his forehead, but it's just above his forehead, and he has just under 90 degrees on the elbow, which will give him a nice quick release as well. When we look at a pull-up jumper after a step back, what we can see is that his elbow and, of course, his elbow shoulder are in line with the basketball net. He does have a slight angle on that shot. However, when he does release, that rotation there is actually very perfect. And what we can see here is he releases with a pointer and middle finger release, which tells me that he actually brings that elbow in when he's actually going up for a shot, and it works for him. This may not work for everybody, but it works for him. I hope that this Shaedon Sharpe breakdown helps you be able to shoot the basketball better and learn just a little bit more about Shaedon Sharpe. He is the #1 prospect this year coming out of Canada, and of course he is one of my favorite high school players right now. He is a lot of fun to watch, and if you haven't seen him yet, definitely go check out some of his highlights. I hope that you've enjoyed. I'll see you guys in my next video.